July 10th, 2024, 9:30 a.m., Highway 101, Oregon. The cliff edge called to him like an old friend. Colton Reeves kept his hands loose on the steering wheel of the Ford F-150, watching the guardrail blur past at 70 miles per hour. Beyond that thin strip of metal, nothing but air and rocks and the Pacific Ocean waiting 300 feet below. It would be easy. A slight turn to the right, maybe 10 degrees, the truck would punch through that guardrail like it was made of paper. 3 seconds of flight, then silence, finally silence. His mother's funeral had been that morning. 7 people in attendance. The pastor had stumbled over her name twice. Sarah Reeves, no Sharon. His mother deserved better than that. She deserved a son who hadn't spent the last 15 years in war zones, coming home only for holidays that felt like lies. She died alone in a hospice room that smelled like disinfectant and broken promises. Colton had been in Kandahar when it happened. By the time he made it stateside, she'd been in the ground for 6 days. The highway curved ahead, the perfect spot. No cars behind him, no witnesses. His right hand drifted toward the wheel. Then Ranger barked. Not a normal bark, the kind of bark that meant incoming fire, IED's death. The kind that had saved Colton's life in Afghanistan more times than he could count. Sharp, urgent, desperate. Colton's eyes snapped to the rearview mirror. The German Shepherd was standing in the back seat, 90 pounds of muscle and scar tissue, his front paws on the center console. Those amber eyes locked onto Colton's face. The dog's ears were flat against his head, his lip curled back, showing teeth. He barked again, louder. "Ranger, down!" The dog didn't move. He lunged forward, his massive head pushing against Colton's shoulder claws, scrabbling on leather. His whole body shook with the force of his barking. Colton's foot hit the brake instinctively. The truck slowed. 60, 50, 40. Ranger's barking turned to whining, high-pitched, frantic. The same sound he'd made in the firebase hospital when they'd told Colton the dog might not walk again. The same sound he'd made every night for the first month stateside when the nightmares came and Colton woke up screaming. The truck rolled to a stop on the shoulder. Colton sat there, hands shaking on the wheel, staring at the cliff edge 20 feet ahead. Ranger pushed his head under Colton's arm, whined again, softer this time. "I'm tired, boy." Colton's voice came out broken. "I'm so goddamn tired." The dog licked his hand once, deliberate, then rested his chin on Colton's thigh. Colton looked down at that graying muzzle, at the scars that crisscrossed Ranger's face like a roadmap of every hell they'd survived together. The dog's right hip hung lower than the left, shrapnel damage. The same blast that had killed Sergeant Brooks, Corporal Hendricks, Lieutenant Dawson, and Private Sullivan. April 15th, 2024, 86 days ago. Colton could still smell the burning flesh, still hear the screaming, still feel the heat of the explosion that should have killed him too. Should have. Ranger had detected the IED 30 seconds before it detonated. 30 seconds. Just enough time for Ranger to push Colton away from the kill zone. Just enough time for 4 good men to die instead of 5. The dog had taken shrapnel in his hip and back, crawled 15 feet through fire to reach Colton, and stood guard over his unconscious body for 40 minutes until medevac arrived. Now Ranger looked up at him with those 2 smart eyes, and Colton understood. The dog had saved him in Kandahar. He was trying to save him again. "Okay," Colton whispered. "Okay, one more day." He put the truck in drive and pulled back onto the highway. 5 miles later, he saw the sign Crescent Bay. Population 3,847. Next exit. His gas tank was nearly empty. His hands were still shaking. He needed coffee. He took the exit. 9:45 a.m. Pinecrest Avenue, Crescent Bay. Marlo Bennett had been awake for 5 hours and 13 minutes. She knew the exact time because she'd been counting. Counting was how she got through the days now. Count the minutes until her shift started. Count the dollars in her tips jar. Count the heartbeats when she checked Ivy's pulse in the middle of the night, terrified she'd find nothing. 110 beats per minute. Too fast. Always too fast. Ivy was 5 years old, Her heart was supposed to beat 70 times per minute when she slept, not 110. But ventricular septal defect didn't care what hearts were supposed to do. The hole in Ivy's heart grew a little bigger every month, and every month Marlo watched her daughter get a little weaker, a little paler, a little closer to the edge. $187,000. That's what the surgery cost. Marlo had called 17 hospitals. The number never changed. Some were kind about it, some weren't. All of them said the same thing: no money, no surgery. Marlo had $1,247 in her savings account. She was $23,853 short of even qualifying for the hospital's payment plan. She made $11 an hour plus tips at the Lighthouse Diner. Working double shifts 6 days a week, she cleared about $2,200 a month. After rent, utilities, Ivy's medications, food, and her grandmother Eudora's medical bills, she saved maybe $300. At that rate, she'd have enough money in 52 years. Ivy would be dead in 2. Marlo stood in the bathroom of the tiny house on Pinecrest Avenue staring at her reflection in the mirror. 28 years old. She looked 40. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back in the same ponytail she'd worn for 2 years because she couldn't afford a haircut and couldn't spare the energy to care. The bruise on her left arm had faded to a sick yellow-green. That was from last week when Mr. Patterson at the grocery store had grabbed her to ask why she hadn't paid her tab. She'd paid it. He'd lost the receipt. He'd grabbed her anyway, fingers digging into her bicep until she showed him the carbon copy she kept in her purse. He hadn't apologized. Nobody apologized in Crescent Bay, not to people like Marlo. People like her were invisible until someone needed something. Then they were convenient, disposable. Marlo splashed cold water on her face and checked the time. 6:17. Her shift at the diner started at 7. Eudora would watch Ivy. Eudora, who was 75 and had arthritis so bad her hands looked like gnarled tree roots. Eudora, who never complained, who sang old hymns while she cooked breakfast, who had raised Marlo after her parents died and was now raising Ivy while Marlo worked herself to death. Some inheritance. Marlo walked into the bedroom she shared with Ivy. The girl was still asleep, her small chest rising and falling too fast. Always too fast. Dark hair spread across the pillow. She looked like her father, Thaddeus, dead 2 years now. September 18th, 2022. A fall from the 9th floor of a construction site. Accidental death, the report said. Improper safety equipment, worker negligence. Marlo knew better. Thaddeus had been the most careful man she'd ever known. He'd triple-checked every harness, every rope, every anchor point. He'd grown up on construction sites. His father had died in a fall. Thaddeus wore his safety gear the way religious people wore crosses. But the report said negligence, and the insurance company paid out $17,000 instead of the $200,000 his policy promised. Blackwell Construction's lawyers had made sure of that. 6 months of fighting. 6 months of paperwork and phone calls and certified letters, and in the end, Marlo signed the settlement because Ivy needed medication and the mortgage was 3 months overdue. She'd signed away her husband's life for $17,000. $12,000 of it was already gone. Marlo kissed Ivy's forehead and whispered, "I love you, baby girl." Ivy stirred but didn't wake. Marlo left for work. 11:15 a.m. Lighthouse Diner. The diner sat on Main Street like a broken promise. It had been there for 40 years, since before the Blackwells bought up the town and turned it into their personal kingdom. Opal Rutherford owned it, a 65-year-old woman with steel-gray hair and a voice like gravel who'd worked in this place for 35 years and refused to sell no matter how many times Donovan Blackwell made offers. The offers had stopped 5 years ago. Now the building just slowly decayed. Cracked vinyl booths, fluorescent lights that hummed and flickered, a jukebox that only played songs from 1987. But the coffee was good and the food was cheap, and people still came because it was one of the few places in Crescent Bay that didn't have the Blackwell name stamped on it. Marlo tied her apron and started her shift. The morning crowd was the usual. Jeremiah Walsh, 72. who'd been a fisherman before the Blackwells bought the docks and raised the mooring fees until only their boats could afford to stay. He ordered eggs over easy and coffee black and left a $2 tip that Marlowe knew he couldn't afford. Cora Finch, the night shift nurse at Crescent Bay Medical, who was too tired to talk, but always smiled when Marlowe refilled her cup. Marcus and Dahlia Brennan, the retired couple who came in every Thursday and ordered the same thing, 2 pancake specials, one with blueberries, one plain, and they'd split a side of bacon and hold hands across the table like they were still 20, normal people, good people, people who deserved better than a town slowly dying under the weight of one family's greed. At 11:20, the Lamborghini pulled up outside. Marlowe saw it through the window. Cherry red, low and sleek and absolutely wrong for the cracked asphalt streets of Crescent Bay, the kind of car that cost more than her house. She knew what that meant. Opal saw it too. The older woman's face went hard. Trouble. Maybe they're just passing through, Marlowe said, but her hands were already shaking. Nobody passes through Crescent Bay in a car like that. The door opened. Garrett Blackwell walked in like he owned the place, because in every way that mattered he did. 27 years old, 6 feet tall, wearing a suit that probably cost $5,000. Dark hair slicked back, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Behind him came Scarlett Whitmore, 25, blonde, beautiful in the way magazine covers were beautiful. Fake, expensive, cold. They chose the center booth, the one with the best view, the one where everyone could see them. Garrett snapped his fingers at Marlowe like she was a dog. "You, waitress, service." Marlowe walked over, order pad ready, her professional smile locked in place. "Good morning. Welcome to the Lighthouse Diner. Can I skip the script?" Garrett didn't look up from his phone. "2 espressos, make sure they're hot, and whatever passes for a decent meal in this dump." "We don't serve espresso, sir. We have regular coffee." "Then get us regular coffee." His eyes flicked up to her face for half a second. "And try not to screw it up." Scarlett laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Honestly, Garrett, the help in these places is always so incompetent." Marlowe's hands tightened on her order pad. She thought about Ivy, about the medications that cost $200 a month, about the mortgage payment due in 8 days, about the fact that she needed this job more than she needed her pride. "I'll have your coffee right out." She turned to leave. "Wait." Marlowe stopped, turned back. Garrett was finally looking at her, really looking. His eyes traveled up and down her body in a way that made her skin crawl. "You're actually not bad looking," he said. "For a townie. What's your name?" "Marlowe, sir." "Marlowe." He leaned back in the booth. "Pretty name. Tell me, Marlowe, do you know who I am?" "Yes, sir." "Then you know my family owns this building. We own most of this town, actually." He paused, letting that sink in. "That means, in a very real sense, I own you. At least while you're on the clock." Scarlett giggled. "He's not joking. The last waitress who upset him lost her job and her apartment in the same week." Marlowe felt something cold settle in her stomach. "I'll get your coffee." She walked to the counter. Her legs felt unsteady. Opal was watching through the kitchen window, her face dark with fury. "I know those people," she said quietly. "Donovan Blackwell is the devil himself. His son is worse." "What do you mean?" 3 years ago, a girl in Portland accused Garrett of assault. She was a server at a hotel restaurant. Name was Annabelle Fletcher. Opal's hands gripped the counter. The Blackwells destroyed her, got her fired, evicted from her apartment, dragged her name through every newspaper and blog in Oregon until she couldn't show her face anywhere. What happened to her? Opal's silence was answer enough. Marlowe poured the coffee, her hands steadier now. She'd dealt with difficult customers before. She'd survived worse than entitled rich kids throwing tantrums. She just had to get through this shift, get her paycheck, and go home to Ivy. She carried the coffee to the table. "Here you are. I'll have your food out shortly." Garrett picked up his cup, took a sip, and immediately spat it back. "This is cold." "Sir, I just poured it from a fresh—" "Are you calling me a liar?" "No, I'm just saying the coffee—" "I said it's cold." His voice rose. The diner went quiet. Are you too stupid to understand simple English? Maybe that's why you're working in a place like this. Jeremiah Walsh stood up from his booth. Hey now, there's no need for that kind of talk. Sit down, old man. Garrett's eyes never left Marlowe. This doesn't concern you. It concerns me when someone talks to a lady that way. A lady? Garrett laughed. She's a waitress. She's furniture with legs. Marlowe put her hand on Jeremiah's arm. It's okay, Mr. Walsh. Really, I'll get fresh coffee. Marlowe, please. She went back to the counter. Opal had already poured a fresh cup. Don't let him see you cry, the older woman whispered. That's what he wants. Marlowe took a breath, steadied herself, and returned to the table. Fresh coffee, sir. Garrett took the cup without a word. Scarlett was examining her manicure board with the whole exchange. 10 minutes later, Marlowe brought out their food. Steak and eggs for Garrett, pancakes for Scarlett. Garrett cut into his steak, chewed, made a face. Overcooked. Sir, you ordered it well done. I didn't order shoe leather. He shoved the plate away. Take it back. I can have the kitchen prepare. Don't bother. This whole place is a waste of time. He pulled out his wallet. Marlowe saw the thick stack of $100 bills inside. He tossed 2 20s on the table. That's what this meal was worth. Keep the change. The bill was $47.50. Sir, the total is... I know what the total is. I'm telling you what I'm willing to pay. But I'll have to cover the difference out of my... Then maybe next time you'll do a better job. Something snapped inside Marlowe. 2 years of double shifts. 2 years of abuse from customers who saw her as less than human. 2 years of watching her daughter get sicker while the medical bills piled higher and the Blackwells got richer and nothing ever got better. Sir, I have a daughter who needs surgery. Every dollar matters, please. Did I ask about your life story? Garrett stood up, towering over her. I don't care about your daughter. I don't care about your problems. You're a waitress in a nowhere town and you'll never be anything more. Garrett. Scarlett tugged at his arm, looking bored. Let's just go. Not yet. He picked up the coffee cup. The one he'd said was cold. This one needs to learn respect. He poured it slowly over the table, letting it drip onto the floor. Clean that up. Marlowe stared at him. I said clean it up. On your knees. The word came out before she could stop it. No. Garrett's face went red. What did you say to me? I said no. Marlowe's voice was shaking, but she didn't back down. I'm not your slave. I'm a human being, and I deserve to be treated like one. The slap came so fast she didn't see it. One moment she was standing. The next her cheek was on fire and she was stumbling backward into an empty booth. The room tilted. Her ears rang. Garrett grabbed her hair. His fingers tangled in her ponytail and he yanked her forward. Marlowe screamed. The pain in her scalp was like fire spreading across her skull. Garrett! Scarlett's voice was sharp, but not with concern, with annoyance. Not here, you idiot. She needs to learn. Then he did it. He slammed Marlowe's face into the table. The impact was like nothing she'd ever felt. Her nose crunched. Blood exploded across the white napkins. Stars burst behind her eyes. The world went sideways and then dark and then bright again, all in the space of a heartbeat. Garrett was laughing. Actually laughing. See, that's how you discipline the help. Marlowe couldn't breathe, couldn't see. Blood filled her mouth. All she could think was Ivy. Who's going to take care of Ivy? Jeremiah was on his feet, but 2 men Marlowe hadn't even noticed come in blocked his path. Bodyguards. Opal was screaming something from the kitchen. The other customers sat frozen, too terrified to move. This is how I die, Marlowe thought, in a diner on a Thursday morning because a rich boy wanted to feel powerful. Then the door opened. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Marlowe couldn't see clearly through the blood and tears, but she could make out a shape in the doorway, a man huge, and beside him something else, something that growled, low and dangerous. Let her go! The voice was quiet, calm, the voice of a man who didn't need to raise his volume to be heard. Garrett's grip on her hair loosened slightly. Who the hell are you? I said let her go. A pause. I won't ask again. Garrett released Marlowe's hair with a shove that sent her collapsing to the floor. She lay there gasping, watching through a haze of pain as the confrontation unfolded. The man who'd spoken stepped forward. He was tall, well over 6 feet, shoulders that seemed to fill the doorway. His face was hard-weathered, the face of someone who'd seen things most people couldn't imagine. Short, dark hair, eyes like steel. But it was the dog that made Garrett take a step back. The German Shepherd was massive, easily 90 pounds of muscle and teeth, black and tan coat, amber eyes that stared at Garrett with the focused intensity of a predator that had found its prey. The dog's ears were forward, his lips pulled back just enough to show teeth. "Nice dog," Garrett said, trying to recover his composure. "But I think you should mind your own business, soldier boy. My business is making sure people like you don't hurt people like her. People like me." Garrett laughed, but there was a tremor in it. "Do you know who I am? Do you know who my father is? I know exactly who you are." The man took another step forward. "Garrett Blackwell. 3 assault allegations all settled out of court, 1 victim dead by suicide, and Daddy's money cleaned it all up." Garrett's face went pale. "How do you—" "I know things. It's my job." Another step. "Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to pay your full bill plus $100 tip. You're going to apologize to this woman, and then you're going to leave this town and never come back." "Or what?" the German Shepherd growled. The sound was like distant thunder. "Or Ranger and I are going to have a very bad day. And when we have bad days, other people tend to end up in hospitals." For a moment, the diner was silent. Then Garrett did something that surprised everyone. He laughed. "You're threatening me in my own town." He pulled out his phone. "Let's see how brave you are when the sheriff gets here." He dialed, put the phone to his ear, smiled. "Dad, there's some hick at the diner making threats. Send Sheriff Colton." A pause. "Yes, now." He hung up and looked at the stranger with triumph. 5 minutes. That's how long you have to run before you spend the next 10 years in prison." The man didn't move. "I don't run." 11:52 a.m. 4 minutes and 37 seconds later, a police cruiser pulled into the parking lot. Sheriff Wade Colton walked into the diner like he owned it, which in a sense he did. The Blackwells paid his salary just as surely as the county did. 58-years-old ex-Marine with a gut that hung over his belt and eyes that had long since stopped caring about right and wrong. "What seems to be the problem here?" Garrett pointed at the stranger. "This man threatened me. Assault, intimidation. I want him arrested." Wade looked at the man with the dog, his eyes narrowed. "Military, Navy SEAL, currently on leave." "That explains the dog." Wade nodded slowly. There was something like respect in his eyes, or maybe just caution. "Combat veteran, 3 tours, Afghanistan." Wade was quiet for a moment. "Look, friend, I don't know what happened here, but this is a Blackwell matter. Best thing you can do is get in your truck and keep driving." "Can't do that, Sheriff." "So why not?" "Because that man assaulted this woman." The stranger gestured to Marlowe, who was still on the floor, blood streaming from her nose. "I watched him slam her face into the table. That's felony assault." Wade glanced at Marlowe, then back to Garrett. "That true?" Before Marlowe could answer, Garrett spoke. "She's a clumsy waitress who tripped. Ask anyone." Wade looked around the diner, at Jeremiah Walsh, who was being held back by bodyguards, at Opal watching from the kitchen with fury in her eyes, at the other customers who couldn't meet his gaze. "Anyone see what happened?" Silence. That's how it always worked. The Blackwells asked a question and the town gave the answer they wanted to hear. "See?" Garrett smiled. "Accident. Now arrest this man for threatening me." Wade turned to the stranger. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave, sir. And if I don't, then I'll have to place you under arrest for disorderly conduct." The man was quiet for a moment. The dog sat perfectly still at his side, awaiting command. Then the stranger did something no one expected. He sat down. He slid into the nearest booth, looked at Opal, and said, "Coffee. Black." Everyone stared. What are you doing? Wade demanded. I'm having coffee. It's a public establishment. Unless there's a law against veterans getting breakfast, you can't just, I am. He looked at Garrett. I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you. Not until you apologize to that woman. Garrett's face was crimson with rage. Do you have any idea what I can do to you? I will destroy your life. I will have you dishonorably discharged. I will make sure you never work again. Garrett, Wade's voice was sharp. Let's just go. This isn't worth it. Not until he learns his place. Garrett. The shout came from the door. An older man stood there. Mid-50s, silver hair, expensive suit. Victor Ashford himself, the real power behind the throne. What is going on here? This soldier. I can see what's going on. Donovan's eyes swept the room, taking in everything. His son, the bloody waitress, the stranger with the dog, the terrified customers. Sheriff, why hasn't this been handled? I was just to get everyone out, clear the diner. This conversation is over. Wade started herding customers toward the door. Jeremiah resisted until a bodyguard shoved him outside. Opal was pulled from the kitchen, still screaming protests. Within minutes, the diner was empty except for the Blackwells, the stranger Marlowe still on the floor, and the dog. Donovan approached the stranger's booth. His expression was carefully neutral. I don't believe we've met. Colton Reeves, Navy SEAL commander, retired as of 3 weeks ago. Commander. Donovan nodded slowly. That's impressive. And the dog? Ranger. Retired military working dog. He's got more combat experience than most generals. Donovan pulled out a chair and sat across from Colton. A power move, putting them on equal ground, or pretending to. Mr. Reeves, I think there's been a misunderstanding. My son can be enthusiastic, but I'm sure we can come to some arrangement. I'm not interested in arrangements. Everyone is interested in arrangements. It's just a matter of finding the right price. Donovan pulled out a checkbook. How much would it take for you to get back in your truck and forget this ever happened? Colton was quiet for a moment. Then he looked past Donovan to where Marlowe lay on the floor. She has a daughter, Colton said quietly. 5 years old, heart condition, needs surgery she can't afford. Touching. What's your point? My point is that you and your son are going to pay for that surgery. You're going to pay her a year's salary and damages, and your son is going to write a public apology that gets printed in every newspaper in Oregon. Donovan laughed. Or what? Or I'm going to make it my personal mission to destroy everything you've built. I'm going to dig into every shady deal, every bribed official, every body you've buried. And I'm going to make sure the whole world knows exactly what kind of monsters the Blackwell family really are. The laughter died on Donovan's lips. You don't know what you're dealing with. I've dealt with worse. Taliban, ISIS, drug cartels in Colombia. Colton leaned forward. You're just a rich bully in a small town. I've eaten scarier things for breakfast. Donovan's face hardened. You'll regret this. Maybe, but I doubt it. Donovan stood, straightening his jacket. Garrett, we're leaving. He looked down at Colton one more time. This isn't over, Commander Reeves. No, Colton said. It's not. The Blackwells swept out, taking their bodyguards and the sheriff with them. The door slammed shut. The diner fell silent. Colton sat for a moment, processing. Then he rose and crossed to where Marlowe still lay on the floor. Can you sit up? Marlowe tried to speak, but her mouth was full of blood. She spat, coughed, managed to nod. Colton helped her into a booth. His hands were surprisingly gentle for someone so large. Ranger moved to sit beside her, his massive head resting against her leg. I'm going to call an ambulance. No. Marlowe's voice was raspy. Can't afford it. It's not optional. Your nose is broken. I said no. She tried to stand, swayed, would have fallen if Colton hadn't caught her. I have to get back to work. I have to. Ivy needs. Ivy is your daughter. Marlowe nodded, tears mixing with the blood on her face. She's sick. She needs surgery. Every shift I work is money toward. Her voice broke. He's going to get me fired. Donovan Blackwell owns this building. He's going to get me fired, and then Ivy. She couldn't finish. Colton guided her back to the seat. What's wrong with your daughter? Her heart. She was born with a defect, the doctors say, without surgery. Marlowe couldn't say the words. She's 5 years old. She's all I have left. Ranger whined softly, pressing closer to Marlowe. The dog seemed to sense her distress, her desperation. Where do you live? Why? Because I'm going to drive you home, and then I'm going to figure out how to fix this. You can't fix this. Nobody can fix this. The Blackwells are bullies. Colton's voice was firm. And I've been dealing with bullies my whole life. Marlowe looked at this stranger, this mountain of a man with his scarred hands and haunted eyes and massive dog. She didn't know him. She had no reason to trust him, but for the first time in 2 years, she felt something she'd almost forgotten how to feel, hope. Why, she whispered. Why do you care? Colton was quiet for a long moment. I had a team, he finally said. 6 men. We went through hell together. 4 of them died in an explosion 3 months ago. I couldn't save them. His hand found Ranger's head, stroking the fur gently. This dog is the only reason I'm still alive. He detected the bomb, saved my life, lost 3 of his brothers doing it. Colton looked at Marlowe and she saw something in his eyes. Pain, guilt, determination. I couldn't save my team, but maybe I can save you and your daughter. Maybe that's why I stopped here. Maybe that's the point. Marlowe didn't know what to say, so she just nodded. And together they walked out of the diner into the harsh afternoon sun, leaving behind blood-stained napkins and the echoes of a battle that was just beginning. Because Donovan Blackwell had been right about one thing. This wasn't over. It was only the beginning. July 10th, 2024, 12:15 p.m., Pinecrest Avenue. The house looked like it was one strong wind away from giving up entirely. Colton pulled his F-150 to the curb and killed the engine. The Bennett home sat at the end of Pinecrest Avenue, a narrow street where the asphalt had cracked into a spiderweb of neglect. The house itself was small, maybe 900 square feet, with peeling white paint and a porch that sagged on one side like a broken smile. But the flower boxes under the windows were full of geraniums, bright red against the decay. Someone cared. Someone was trying. Marlowe sat in the passenger seat, holding a blood-soaked towel to her face. She hadn't spoken during the drive. Neither had Colton. Ranger had positioned himself in the back seat directly behind Marlowe, his head resting on her shoulder the entire 10-minute journey. This is it, Marlowe said quietly. Her voice was thick, nasal, the broken nose. Before Colton could respond, the front door burst open. A little girl came running out, dark hair flying behind her. 5 years old, wearing a pink dress with flowers on it. Her face lit up when she saw the truck. Then she saw the blood. Mommy! The joy in her voice transformed to terror in a single syllable. Mommy, who hurt you? Marlowe was out of the truck before Colton could help her. She dropped to her knees and pulled the girl into her arms. It's okay, baby. Mama had an accident at work. You're bleeding. The girl's small hands touched Marlowe's face, came away red. Why are you bleeding? I know, sweetheart, I know, but I'm okay, I promise. The girl looked past her mother to Colton, who had climbed out of the truck. Her eyes went wide. Then she saw Ranger. Is that a wolf? Despite everything, Colton almost smiled. He's a dog. His name is Ranger. Can I pet him? Colton looked at Marlowe, who nodded slightly through her tears. Ranger friend. The German shepherd's posture immediately relaxed. He padded forward and lay down in front of the girl, his tail wagging gently. He's so big. The girl reached out tentatively, her small hand disappearing into Ranger's thick fur. He's soft. He likes you. How can you tell? He's not growling. Trust me, you'd know if he didn't like you. An older woman appeared in the doorway, 75, maybe 80. Gray hair pulled back in a bun, hands gnarled with arthritis gripping a wooden cane. Her eyes took in the scene, her face darkening when she saw Marlowe's injuries. Mija, what happened to your face? Abuela, this is Colton. He helped me. The woman's sharp eyes fixed on Colton. Helped you how? A man attacked her at the diner, Colton said. I intervened. Attacked her. The old woman's voice went hard. Which Blackwell? The son, Garrett. Dios mío. She crossed herself. Come inside, both of you, quickly. They went in. The interior of the house was cramped but clean. Worn furniture that had been loved for decades. Photographs covering every surface. A small kitchen with yellow curtains. The smell of something baking cinnamon and sugar. The girl Ivy refused to leave Ranger's side. She sat on the floor while the dog lay beside her, her fingers still buried in his fur. The old woman Eudora guided Marlowe to the bathroom. Colton heard water running, heard Marlowe's sharp intake of breath as her grandmother cleaned the blood from her face. He stood in the living room taking it in. The medical bills stacked on the kitchen table, the worn carpet, the careful poverty of people who stretched every dollar until it screamed. His eyes found a photograph on the mantel. A young man in a construction hard hat, arm around a smiling Marlowe who looked about 10 years younger. They were standing in front of a half-built house, both covered in sawdust, both laughing. "That's my daddy." Ivy's voice was small. She'd followed his gaze. "He died. I'm sorry. Mommy says he's in heaven, but I miss him anyway." Colton knelt down to her level. "What was his name?" "Thaddeus. Thaddeus Bennett." She pronounced each syllable carefully, like it was important to get it right. "He built houses, big ones." "That sounds like important work." "Mommy says he was brave. She says he tried to do the right thing and bad people hurt him for it." Colton felt something cold settle in his chest. "What bad people? I don't know. She doesn't talk about it much. It makes her too sad." Eudora emerged from the bathroom, her face grim. "The nose is broken. She needs a doctor." She refused an ambulance. Of course she did. She refuses everything that costs money. The old woman's eyes were fierce. "You military—" "Yes, ma'am. Navy SEAL, retired 3 weeks ago. And you just happened to be in the diner when my granddaughter got attacked. I was passing through, stopped for coffee. Passing through to where? Seattle. My mother died. I was driving up for the funeral." Eudora studied him for a long moment, then she nodded. "Sit down. I'll make coffee. Real coffee, not that swill they serve at the diner." While she worked, Colton pulled out his phone and stepped onto the porch. He dialed a number he knew by heart, 3 rings. "Reeves. The hell are you calling me for? I thought you were on leave." "I am Drummond, but I need a favor." Wyatt Drummond had been Colton's intelligence specialist for 6 years. 33 years old, built like a middleweight boxer with a mind that could crack encryption codes and hack government databases before most people finished their first cup of coffee. "What kind of favor?" "I need you to dig into a family called Blackwell. Donovan Blackwell, based in Crescent Bay, Oregon. Everything you can find. Financials, legal history, any skeletons they might be hiding." A pause. "You in trouble?" "Not yet, but I will be if you don't get me that information. Give me 6 hours, I'll call you back." Colton hung up and went back inside. Eudora had made coffee strong and black and set out a plate of cookies that Ivy was already attacking. Marlowe sat at the table, her face swollen but clean. Someone had given her ice wrapped in a dish towel. "Thank you," Marlowe said, "for everything, but you should go. The Blackwells, they'll come after you, they always do." "Let them. You don't understand. They own this town. The police, the courts, everything. They'll destroy you." "They can try." Marlowe's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and her face went pale. "What is it?" "A text from my boss at the diner." She held up the phone so Colton could see. "Don't bother coming in tomorrow, or ever. You're done," Blackwell called. Marlowe's hands started shaking. "They fired me! They actually fired me!" "Can they do that?" Colton asked. "They can do anything they want. Donovan owns the building. If Harold doesn't comply, he loses his lease." Her voice cracked. "I needed that job. Ivy's surgery—" "Mama." Ivy tugged at her sleeve. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, baby, nothing's wrong." "Then why are you crying?" Eudora stood up. Her face set with determination. "Ivy, come help Abuela in the garden. The tomatoes need watering." "But I want to stay with Mama." "Now, child." Something in the old woman's tone broke no argument. Ivy cast one more worried look at her mother, then followed Eudora outside. Ranger padded after them, apparently appointing himself as the girl's guardian. When they were gone, Marlowe broke down completely. "I don't know what to do." The words came out between sobs. "I have $1,200 in savings. The surgery costs $187,000. I was going to work double shifts for the next 2 years, save every penny." She buried her face in her hands. "And now I have nothing. Nothing." Colton sat across from her, unsure what to say. He'd been trained to handle enemy combatants' IEDs, impossible missions in hostile territory, but a crying mother facing the death of her child, that wasn't in any manual. "I should go," he said finally. Marlowe looked up. "What? I was just passing through. This isn't my fight. I should get back on the road and leave us to face the Blackwells alone." It wasn't an accusation. It was just a statement of fact. She wasn't asking him to stay. She was simply acknowledging that he was leaving. And something about that, the resignation in her voice, the lack of expectation, hit Colton harder than any plea could have. He thought about his team. Sergeant Brooks, who had a daughter he'd never see grow up. Corporal Hendricks, who was 3 weeks from retirement. Lieutenant Dawson, who had joined the Navy to escape a poverty that looked a lot like this. Private Sullivan, who was 19 years old and had written letters home every day. He couldn't save them. No matter how many times he replayed that day in his head, he couldn't change what happened. But maybe he could save someone else. "I'm not leaving." Marlowe stared at him. "What?" "I said I'm not leaving, not yet." Colton stood up. "The Blackwells think they can do whatever they want. Because nobody's ever stood up to them. Well, they haven't met me. You don't understand what they're capable of. I've faced worse. Taliban commanders who skinned prisoners alive, drug lords who dissolved their enemies in acid, a rich family in a small town." Colton shook his head. "They're amateurs. They'll destroy you. They can try." His phone rang. Wyatt calling back in under an hour instead of 6. "Talk to me." "Commander, you've stepped in something deep." Wyatt's voice was tense. "Donovan Blackwell isn't just a real estate developer. He's laundering money, big money. I've found Shell Corporation's offshore accounts shipping manifests that don't add up. Keep digging. There's more. About the son Garrett. He's got a pattern. 4 assault allegations in the past 6 years, all involving women in service positions. Waitresses, hotel staff, flight attendants. All of them were paid off." "That matches what I saw. But there's one that wasn't paid off, right?" A long pause. "How did you know?" "Lucky guess." "Her name was Annabelle Fletcher. College student, worked at a hotel restaurant in Portland. She accused Garrett of sexual assault 3 years ago. Refused to take the settlement money, wanted to press charges. What happened to her? She's dead, Commander. Suicide. Jumped off the Fremont Bridge 6 months after she filed charges. Case dismissed. No defendant to prosecute. Garrett walked away clean." Colton felt something cold settle in his gut. "Send me everything you have." "Already did. Check your email." Colton hung up and looked at Marlowe. "Garrett Blackwell has done this before, multiple times. One of his victims killed herself." Marlowe's hand went to her mouth. "Oh, God. He's not going to stop Marlowe. People like him never stop. They just keep hurting people until someone stops them. And you think you can stop him? I have to try." July 11th, 2024, 2:23 a.m. Colton woke to the sound of breaking glass. He was on his feet instantly, muscle memory from 15 years of military service taking over before his conscious mind fully engaged. He'd fallen asleep on the couch, still dressed, his boots within arm's reach. Ranger was already at the window, growling low in his throat. Colton moved to the curtain's edge and looked out. 2 black Escalades were parked across the street, engines running. As he watched, a third vehicle pulled up behind them. Men were getting out, at least 8 of them, all wearing dark clothes. They weren't trying to hide. Colton grabbed his phone and dialed Wyatt. "I need you in Crescent Bay, now." "What's happening?" "The Blackwells are making a move. How fast can you get here?" 3 hours if I leave now." "Do it. And Wyatt, bring everything." "Everything. You know what I mean." He hung up and checked the house. Marlowe was asleep in her bedroom, Ivy curled up beside her. Eudora was in the other bedroom, her door closed. all of them unaware that danger was sitting across the street watching. Colton went back to the window. One of the men lit a cigarette. The orange glow illuminated his face for a moment. Young, maybe 25. Professional. These weren't street thugs. They were trained security. The message was clear: we're watching. We know where you sleep. Colton smiled grimly. Let them watch. Let them see what was coming. At 6:47 a.m., his phone buzzed with an email from Wyatt. The subject line read, "You need to see this." Colton opened the attachment. It was a video file dated September 18th, 2022. Security camera footage from a construction site. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. The video showed a man in a hard hat and safety gear on the 9th floor of a building under construction. He was checking something on a clipboard, completely unaware of the two figures approaching from behind. Colton recognized the man from the photograph on Marlowe's mantel, Thaddeus Bennett. The two figures moved fast. They grabbed Thaddeus, who struggled, dropping his clipboard. One of them punched him in the stomach. The other kicked his legs out from under him. Then they dragged him to the edge of the floor and threw him over. Colton watched Thaddeus Bennett fall 9 stories to his death. The two men looked at each other, nodded, and walked away. The video ended. Colton sat there staring at the frozen final frame. Murder. Clear as day. Premeditated. Deliberate. He scrolled down. Wyatt had included a second file, an email: internal Blackwell Corporation correspondence dated September 19, 2022. 8:03 a.m. Problem resolved. TB won't testify. Cleanup crew handled it. Coroner's report will read accidental death, safety violation. Insurance claim denied. Wife and kid are no threat. DBDB Donovan Blackwell. Colton heard movement behind him. He turned to find Marlowe standing in the doorway, wearing an old t-shirt and sweatpants, her face still swollen from yesterday's attack. Couldn't sleep either. He closed the laptop. Just doing some research. On the Blackwells? Yeah. She sat down beside him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They killed him, didn't they? Marlowe's voice was barely a whisper. Thaddeus, it wasn't an accident. Colton opened the laptop again, turned it so she could see. You should watch this, but it's not going to be easy. I need to know. He played the video. Marlowe watched in silence. When it ended, when she'd seen her husband thrown to his death, she made a sound that wasn't quite a sob and wasn't quite a scream. It was something deeper, raw. The sound of grief that had been waiting 2 years to find its voice. I knew it, she whispered. God help me, I always knew. Colton let her cry. Sometimes that was all you could do. Let the poison out. When she finally spoke again, her voice was different, harder. I want to fight. Marlowe, they took my husband. They're trying to take my future. They hurt me in front of my daughter. She looked at him and her eyes were dry now, fierce. I want to fight back, whatever it takes. It's going to be dangerous. I don't care. They could kill you. They're already killing me. Just slowly. She stood up. You said you needed evidence to take them down. I can get it. How? The beach house. The Blackwell Beach compound. I applied for a housekeeping job there 3 months ago before Thaddeus died. They turned me down, but my application is still in their system. If they're short-staffed, if they need someone quickly. Colton understood immediately. You want to go in undercover. Garrett never looked at my face. Not really. I was just furniture to him. Remember, if I call, say I heard they're hiring again, they might not make the connection. This is insane. This is the only way. You know it is. She was right. Wyatt could hack databases and find financial records, but the real evidence, the physical proof they needed to guarantee FBI involvement, would be at the beach house. Ledgers, documents, shipping manifests. Everything that could connect the Blackwells to murder and drug trafficking. But sending Marlowe in alone. I'll wire you, he said. Give you a panic button. At the first sign of trouble, you run. No heroics. Agreed. I mean it, Marlowe. Ivy needs her mother. I know. That's why I have to do this. So she has a mother who didn't give up. July 12, 2024. 11 a.m. Wyatt Drummond arrived exactly 3 hours after Colton's call, pulling up in a nondescript Ford Transit van that looked like it belonged to a plumber but contained enough surveillance equipment to make the NSA jealous. He was shorter than Colton, 5'10", with the compact build of a wrestler and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He wore jeans and a black t-shirt, and when he shook Colton's hand, his grip was firm. "Good to see you, Commander. Wish it was under better circumstances. When is it ever?" Wyatt looked at the house, at the neighborhood. "So this is ground zero. This is it." They spent the next 3 hours setting up. Wyatt installed micro cameras around the property perimeter, hacked into the neighborhood's few security cameras, and mapped the entire area on his laptop. He showed Colton the thermal imaging of the Blackwell Beach compound, pointing out guard rotations, blind spots, and what appeared to be an underground vault beneath the garage. "That's where they'll keep the good stuff," Wyatt said. "Climate-controlled, secure, definitely not for storing beach towels." At 1:30 p.m., Marlowe made the call. Colton and Wyatt listened on speaker as the phone rang twice, then a woman answered. "Blackwell residence." "Hi, yes, my name is Marlowe Santos." She'd changed her last name, a basic precaution. "I applied for a housekeeping position about 3 months ago. I was wondering if you're still looking for staff." A pause. Typing sounds. "Santos. Yes, I have your application here. We are short-handed, actually. Can you come in this afternoon for a trial shift?" "This afternoon, yes, absolutely. What time?" 2 o'clock. Use the service entrance. Ask for Mrs. Alcott." "Thank you so much." Marlowe hung up. Her hands were shaking. "I'm in." Wyatt fitted her with a microphone so small it was nearly invisible, disguised as a button on her shirt. The panic button was a pendant, simple silver, the kind anyone might wear. Press it once for alert, twice for emergency extraction. "Remember," Colton said, "if anything feels wrong, I know, I run, you've told me 17 times. I'm telling you an 18th. Ivy needs you alive." Marlowe's expression softened. She reached up and touched his face, her fingers gentle on his stubbled cheek. "Thank you for caring, for staying." Then she got in her car, a battered Toyota Camry that Eudora had lent her, and drove toward the beach. Colton and Wyatt followed at a distance, parking the van 950 meters from the compound, hidden behind an abandoned fish processing plant. Wyatt powered up his equipment. Multiple screens showed different camera angles, thermal imaging, audio waveforms from Marlowe's microphone. He pulled up the hacked security feeds from the compound itself. 12 cameras, 8 guards on rotation. Garrett Blackwell is on site, 2nd floor, northeast corner. That's his office. Colton listened to Marlowe's breathing through the speakers. Steady, calm. She was keeping it together. "Here we go," Wyatt murmured. Through the audio feed, they heard a door open. "You must be the new girl." A woman's voice, British accent, cold and professional. "I'm Mrs. Alcott. Welcome to the Blackwell residence. Follow me." For the next hour and 20 minutes, they listened to Marlowe clean, vacuuming, dusting, the mundane sounds of domestic work. Mrs. Alcott gave her instructions in clipped tones, showed her where supplies were kept, warned her about rooms that were off limits. "The 2nd floor is Mr. Garrett's private wing. You don't go up there unless specifically instructed. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am." At 3:30 p.m., Mrs. Alcott's phone rang. She answered, spoke briefly, then told Marlowe she needed to step out for 15 minutes. "Continue with the guest bedrooms. I'll be back shortly." Footsteps receding, a door closing, silence. Then Marlowe's whisper, barely audible, "I'm going up." "Negative," Colton said into his microphone, knowing she could hear him through the earbud Wyatt had given her. "Too risky. This might be my only chance. Marlowe." But she was already moving. They could hear it in her breathing, in the soft sound of her footsteps on carpet, then hardwood, then carpet again. "2nd floor," she whispered. "I'm in the hallway." Wyatt pulled up a blueprint of the house on his screen. Garrett's office is 3rd door on the left. Colton watched the thermal imaging. 8 heat signatures on the ground floor, all moving in regular patterns. Guards. One signature on the second floor stationery in the northeast corner. Garrett. "He's in there," Colton warned. "Abort and come back down." "The door's open. He's not at his desk. I can see inside." "Marlo, this is a bad idea. 30 seconds. That's all I need." She was inside. They could hear her breathing harder now, adrenaline kicking in, the soft click of her phone camera. Shipping manifests, bank transfers. There's a filing cabinet locked. No, wait, there's a key under the paperwork on his desk. Click, the sound of metal on metal. "It's open." "What do you see?" Wyatt asked. "Money, stacks of it, and documents. More shipping records, names and dates." Her voice dropped to a horrified whisper. "Jesus, there's a file labeled Thaddeus Bennett, eliminated." Colton's hands clenched into fists. "Take pictures, everything." The camera clicked rapidly, 10 times, 15, 20. "There's more, a ledger, payments to Sheriff Wade Colton, to city council members, to—" She stopped. "There's a list, names of people who needed to be handled. Thaddeus is on it, and next to his name is a date." "What date?" "September 18th, 2022, the day before he died." "That's enough. Get out of there. Now." "Wait, there's one more thing. Marlo, get out." But it was already too late. Through the audio feed, they heard a new voice. Male, amused, cruel. "Going somewhere?" Garrett Blackwell. Colton was on his feet, reaching for his weapon. Through the speakers, Marlo's voice was steady, but Colton could hear the fear underneath. "Mr. Blackwell, I know exactly what you were doing. I've been watching you for 18 minutes. The sound of Garrett tapping on something. An iPad. "Did you really think I wouldn't have cameras in my own office? Did you really think I wouldn't recognize the bitch from the diner?" Footsteps, multiple sets. "You see, Marlo, I'm not stupid. I recognized you the moment you walked in. That's why I hired you. I wanted to see if you were working with the soldier. And look at that, you are." A snap of fingers. "Vance Knox, take her to the basement. And make sure to destroy that wire she's wearing. Tell her boyfriend we're listening." The sound of a struggle. Marlo crying out, something hitting the floor. "Marlo!" Colton shouted into the microphone. Garrett's laugh came through the speakers. "Hello, Commander Reeves. I assume you're listening. Here's what's going to happen. You have 1 hour to turn yourself in. Walk through my front door, hands up, and maybe I won't kill her, maybe. Touch her and you're 3 miles away. By the time you get here, she'll be in so many pieces you'll need a forensics team to identify her." The audio cut out. Wyatt was already moving packing equipment. "We need to go, now." Colton grabbed his M4 carbine from the weapons case Wyatt had brought. Started loading magazines, 30 rounds each, 6 magazines. "What's the plan?" Wyatt asked. "We go in, we get her out. Commander, it's a fortress, 8 guards minimum, probably more. We're 2 men and a dog against a small army. Then we'd better not miss." Ranger was on his feet, sensing the shift in Colton's energy. The dog's ears were forward, his body tense. "Ready." Colton attached the suppressor to his rifle, checked the chamber, flipped the safety off. "Let's go bring her home." July 12, 2024, 5:20 p.m., Blackwell Beach compound. The cliff face was nearly vertical, 50 feet of jagged rock and sea spray. Most people would look at it and see impossible. Colton saw opportunity. He secured the rope around a boulder, tested the anchor twice, then rappelled down in darkness. The sun had dropped below the horizon 20 minutes ago, painting the sky in shades of blood orange and purple. Below him, waves crashed against the rocks with rhythmic violence. Ranger descended beside him in a harness Wyatt had rigged, the dog's weight pulling against Colton's shoulders. They'd done this before in mountains in Afghanistan, in jungles in Colombia. The dog trusted him completely. They touched down on a narrow ledge invisible from above, 20 feet above the waterline. Colton unclipped both harnesses and gave Ranger the hand signal for silence. The dog's ears went flat, his body low. Through his earpiece, Wyatt's voice was calm. 2 guards at the north entrance, 3 at the main gate. You're clear on the beach approach. Thermal shows Marlo in the basement southwest corner. 1 heat signature with her. And Garrett, still on the 2nd floor. Donovan just arrived. 4 more heat signatures with him, professional security judging by their movement patterns. Colton checked his watch, 5:22 p.m. Marlowe had been in their hands for an hour and 37 minutes. He moved along the beach, Ranger matching his pace exactly. The compound loomed above them, all glass and steel and money. Lights were on in several rooms. Through the windows he could see guards moving, their silhouettes sharp against the interior illumination. The service entrance was exactly where Wyatt said it would be. A metal door, security keypad, camera pointing at the landing. Camera, looped. You've got 90 seconds before someone notices. Colton pulled out the lockpick gun Wyatt had given him. The lock clicked open in 8 seconds. He slipped inside, Ranger close behind. They were in a utility corridor, concrete floors, exposed pipes along the ceiling. The smell of bleach and industrial cleaner. Go left, 50 feet. Door at the end leads to the main basement. Colton moved like smoke, his rifle up, scanning corners. The corridor was empty. At the door he paused, listened. Voices on the other side. 2 men, casual conversation about a football game. Guards. He looked at Ranger. The dog's muscles were coiled, ready. Colton opened the door fast. The first guard was reaching for his radio when Ranger hit him. 90 pounds of military-trained German Shepherd slammed into the man's chest, jaws clamping around his forearm. The guard screamed. The scream cut off when Colton's rifle butt connected with his temple. The second guard got his hand on his weapon. Almost drew it. Colton was faster. A throat strike, precise and brutal. The guard dropped, gasping, unable to breathe or cry out. Colton followed with a knee to the face. The man went still. 12 seconds, 2 guards down. Clear, Colton whispered into his mic. Marlowe straight ahead, 20 feet, 1 guard inside with her. Colton moved to the door Wyatt indicated. Heavy steel, reinforced, but not locked. The Blackwells were arrogant. They never thought anyone would get this far. He took a breath, centered himself, then kicked the door open. The guard inside spun, reaching for his sidearm. Colton's rifle was already aimed center mass. Don't! The guard froze. Marlowe was tied to a chair in the center of the room. Her face was bruised, fresh blood on her lip. But her eyes were clear, defiant. When she saw Colton, relief flooded her features. Colton, I've got you. You're safe now. To the guard. On the floor, face down, hands behind your head. The man hesitated. Ranger growled low and deadly. The guard dropped fast. Colton zip-tied the man's wrists and ankles, gagged him with duct tape, then moved to Marlowe. His hands were steady as he cut the ropes binding her wrists. Can you walk? Yes, they just scared me. They didn't. She swallowed. They were waiting for orders from Garrett. Where is he? Upstairs, 2nd floor. He's with his father and Sheriff Colton. They're planning something. I heard them talking about the pier. The pier. They want you to come to them. They're setting a trap. Wyatt's voice crackled in his ear. Commander, we have a problem. 3 vehicles just pulled up. I count 12 new heat signatures. They're armed and moving fast. Where? Main entrance. Heading inside now. Wait, I'm getting chatter on police frequencies. It's FBI. Agent Frost just arrived with a SWAT team. Colton felt a surge of hope. How many? Looks like 15 agents plus tactical support. Tell them we're in the basement with a hostage. We're coming up. He helped Marlowe to her feet. FBI's here. We're getting out. They made it to the corridor before the alarm started screaming. Someone had found the unconscious guards. Red emergency lights began strobing, casting everything in hellish crimson. Somewhere above them, men were shouting. East exit through the garage, Wyatt said. I'll coordinate with FBI to clear your path. Colton pulled Marlowe toward the stairs. Ranger took point, his ears swiveling, tracking sounds. They made it up 1 flight. At the landing, a door burst open, 2 guards' weapons drawn. Ranger launched himself at the nearest man, jaws finding the gun hand. Bones crunched. The weapon clattered away. Colton engaged the 2nd guard. Disarm, strike, disable. 3 moves. The guard went down hard. Keep moving! They ran through a hallway lined with expensive art. The garage was ahead just 50 more feet. Then Sheriff Wade Colton stepped into their path, service weapon drawn. Well, well. Wade's face was pale, sweating. End of the line, Reeves. Colton's rifle was pointed at the floor. He couldn't bring it up faster than Wade could pull the trigger. Drop the weapon. Kick it away. Wade, don't do this. The FBI is here. It's over. It's not over until I say it's over. Wade's hand shook. I've been on Donovan's payroll for 20 years. You think I can just walk away from that? You can. Agent Frost offered you a deal, immunity for testimony. Wade's eyes widened. How do you know about that? Because we've been watching you. We know about your son. We know Garrett killed him in 2019 and Donovan helped cover it up. The sheriff's face crumpled. For a moment the gun wavered. My boy was 16 years old. Garrett beat him to death over a parking space argument, and Donovan made it look like suicide. Tears streamed down Wade's face. I've been a coward ever since, too scared to do the right thing. Then do it now. Put the gun down. Help us end this. Wade's hand trembled. The gun started to lower. Then the shot rang out. Wade jerked forward, a red flower blooming on his back. He stumbled, his weapon falling from nerveless fingers. Behind him stood Donovan Blackwell, holding a smoking Glock. Pathetic, Donovan said coldly. I knew the FBI approached you, Wade. Did you really think I wouldn't find out I have people inside the bureau? Wade collapsed to his knees. Donovan, we were friends. Friends don't betray friends. Donovan aimed at Wade's head. Colton moved. His rifle came up and he fired 3 rounds, suppressed shots that punched through Donovan's center mass. The older man staggered back, but he didn't fall. Donovan looked down at his chest, then back up at Colton, smiled through blood-stained teeth. Body armor, Commander, did you think I was unprepared? He raised his weapon toward Marlowe. Ranger was faster. The dog launched himself across the 15-foot gap, all 90 pounds of muscle and fury. He hit Donovan's gun arm just as the Glock fired. The shot went wild, punching through a window. Donovan and Ranger went down in a tangle of limbs and teeth. The dog's jaws clamped on Donovan's wrist. The Glock skittered across the floor. Ranger, release! The dog let go immediately, backing away to Colton's side. Donovan scrambled to his feet, clutching his bleeding wrist. This isn't over. You have no idea what you've walked into. He ran through a side door and slammed it shut. The heavy lock engaged. Colton knelt beside Wade. The sheriff was bleeding badly, his breathing shallow. Hang on, FBI's coming. Tell my wife. Wade coughed blood on his lips. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I tried to do the right thing at the end. You can tell her yourself. Just stay with me. But Wade's eyes were already glazing over. His last breath came out as a whisper. My boy, I'm coming. Then he was gone. Colton closed the dead man's eyes. Whatever Wade had been, whatever he'd done at the end, he'd tried to choose right over wrong. We need to move, Marlowe said quietly, before Donovan comes back with more men. They ran for the garage. Behind them, they could hear the FBI breaching the front entrance, shouting commands. The garage door was open. Wyatt's van was there, engine running. They piled in and Wyatt floored it, tires screaming on polished concrete. FBI has the building surrounded, Wyatt reported. Donovan's trapped inside with Garrett and maybe 8 security personnel. SWAT is moving in now. Colton looked back at Marlowe. You okay? No, but I'm alive. Thanks to you. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered on speaker. Hello, Commander Reeves. Donovan's voice was calm despite everything. Impressive work back there. You've cost me a great deal tonight. It's over, Donovan. Surrender to the FBI. It's not over. Not even close. A pause. You see, while you were playing hero, my men were visiting that charming little house on Pinecrest Avenue. We have Ivy. Marlowe's scream was primal. Here's what happens next, Donovan continued. You and Marlowe meet me at the old pier. The abandoned one, you know it. You have 45 minutes. Come alone unarmed or the girl goes into the ocean. Are we clear? If you hurt her, some 44 minutes now. I suggest you hurry. The line went dead. Wyatt was already pulling up maps on his tablet. The old pier. It's a kill box. No cover. Single access point. If we go there, we're going. Colton's voice was steel. It's suicide. Then I die, but we're getting Ivy back. Marlowe grabbed his arm. Eudora. Is she? Wyatt pulled up thermal imaging from a satellite feed he'd hacked earlier. 1 heat signature at your house. Looks like an adult. She's not moving much, but she's alive. They left her alive as bait, Colton said, to make sure we'd come. He turned to Wyatt. Get to high ground, 700 meters minimum. You'll have one shot to turn this around. What's the plan? I'm still working on it. July 12, 2024, 8:47 p.m., Old Pier. The pier jutted into the Pacific like a broken finger, rotted wood and rusted metal slowly surrendering to the sea. It had been built in the 1950s for fishing boats abandoned when the Blackwells centralized everything at their own facility. Now it was just a ghost creaking and groaning in the wind. Colton and Marlowe walked down the pier side by side. The boards felt unstable under their feet. Through the gaps they could see dark water churning 20 feet below. Ranger limped beside them. The old injury in his hip was worse after the compound fight. The dog should have been resting. But when Colton tried to leave him in the van, Ranger had simply stared at him with those golden eyes until Colton relented. Some battles you fought together. No matter what. Garrett stood in the center of the pier, illuminated by portable work lights set up in a rough circle. He held Ivy in front of him like a shield, one arm wrapped around her small body, the other hand. Pressing a Beretta 92 against her temple, Ivy's face was streaked with tears, her eyes wide with terror. When she saw Marlowe, she tried to scream, but the tape over her mouth muffled it to a whimper. "Mommy, I'm here, baby." Marlowe's voice cracked. "I'm here." Colton scanned the area. They were exposed, standing in the open with nowhere to hide. In the darkness beyond the lights, he could make out shapes. Men, at least a dozen, maybe more. This was the trap, and they'd walked right into it. Then more lights blazed to life, flooding the pier with harsh white illumination. Donovan Blackwell stepped into the light, walking slowly, deliberately. He was wearing a fresh suit despite the hour, perfectly pressed, not a hair out of place. The bloodstains from Colton's bullets had been cleaned away. "Commander Reeves, Marlowe, thank you for being punctual." His smile was warm, friendly, the smile of a man at a business meeting. "I appreciate professionalism." "Let her go, Donovan." "Of course, eventually. But first we need to discuss terms." "There are no terms. You let Ivy go or I kill you." Donovan laughed. "With what you're unarmed, I can see that from here. No bulge under your jacket, no ankle holster. You followed my instructions perfectly." He was right. Colton had left his rifle in the van. All he had was the combat knife strapped to his calf, hidden under his jeans. Not much use against a dozen armed men. "Terms," Donovan repeated. "Here's what I'm offering. You leave. Tonight. Drive away and never come back. In exchange, Marlowe and Ivy live. They won't be harmed. They'll be allowed to stay in their little house, continue their little lives. All you have to do is walk away. And if I refuse, then I kill all three of you right here. Your bodies go into the ocean. In a few months, pieces might wash up. But by then, who will care? Who will even remember you were here?" Marlowe grabbed Colton's arm. "Take the deal." "What?" "Take it. Save yourself. Ivy and I will survive. We always do. Marlowe, she's my daughter, my responsibility, not yours. You've done enough." Tears streamed down her face. "Please, just go." Colton looked at this woman who'd been beaten down but never broken, this child who deserved a future, this dog who'd sacrificed everything, his family. "No." "Colton, I said no." He stepped forward, putting himself between Marlowe and Donovan. "You want to kill me, fine, but you let them go first." Donovan's smile faded. "You're not in a position to negotiate." "Then shoot me. But you won't get what you want. And what do I want? Silence. You want me gone because I'm a threat. I know too much. I have evidence. If I disappear, you can claim I was lying, that I fabricated everything, but if you kill me here in front of witnesses, that story gets harder to sell." Donovan's eyes narrowed. "Who said anything about witnesses?" The shapes in the darkness moved closer. Colton counted 14 men, all armed, all professional. Not local thugs. These were cartel soldiers, and leading them was a man Colton recognized from Wyatt's intelligence reports. El Cuervo, the Crow, Donovan's partner in the drug trade, a Sinaloa lieutenant who'd personally executed over 40 people. Commander Reeves. El Cuervo's voice was soft-accented. I've heard much about you. Navy SEAL, war hero, very impressive. Wish I could say the same. El Cuervo laughed. You cost us $40 million in product. When the FBI raided the estate, they seized 3 shipments. Do you know what my bosses do to people who lose that kind of money? I can guess. I don't think you can, but you will learn, slowly. Donovan checked his watch. This has been enlightening, but I have other matters to attend to. El Cuervo, you have 20 minutes. Make it memorable. He started to walk away. Colton's hand moved to his boot fingers, closing around the knife handle. Then Ranger barked. Not a warning bark. A specific bark. The one he'd been trained to use in Afghanistan when he detected explosives. Everyone froze. What is that? El Cuervo demanded. My dog, Colton said. He's alerting. Alerting to what? Bombs. The word sent a ripple through the cartel soldiers. Several of them took involuntary steps backward. You're lying, Donovan said, but there was uncertainty in his voice. Am I? Colton looked at Ranger, who was still barking, staring at the support pillars of the pier. Ranger was trained to detect IEDs. He's never wrong. There's something explosive on this pier. It was mostly a bluff. Colton had no idea if there were actual explosives present, but Ranger's training was real and his track record was perfect. The dog had detected bombs in situations where human technology failed, and these men knew it. They'd seen what IEDs could do. They'd lost friends to bombs hidden in walls, under roads, inside vehicles. The cartel soldiers were muttering now, looking at the pillars, the support beams, the dark water below. Shut that dog up! El Cuervo snapped. One of the soldiers raised his rifle. Colton whistled, sharp, piercing, 720 meters away on a rooftop overlooking the pier. Wyatt Drummond heard the signal through his spotting scope. He exhaled slowly, squeezed the trigger. The Barrett M82.50 caliber rifle roared. The round crossed the distance in less than a second. It hit Garrett's right wrist, the one holding the Beretta, and the hand simply disintegrated. Bones and tissue vaporized. The gun spun away into the darkness. Garrett's scream was inhuman. Ivy fell. Colton was already moving. He covered the distance in 3 strides, scooped Ivy up, and kept running toward Marlowe. El Cuervo was shouting orders in Spanish. The cartel soldiers opened fire, but they were shooting blind, panicked by the sniper they couldn't see. Colton threw Ivy into Marlowe's arms. Run back to shore! Marlowe didn't hesitate. She clutched her daughter and ran. Ranger was beside them, limping but keeping pace, his body between them and the gunfire. Colton turned back. Donovan had drawn a compact 9mm. He was aiming at Marlowe's back. Colton pulled the knife from his boot and threw it in one smooth motion. The blade caught Donovan in the shoulder, spinning him around. The shot went wide, punching through old wood instead of flesh. Then Colton was on him. 15 years of learning how to kill men with his bare hands. He used every bit of that training now. Disarmed Donovan with a wrist lock that shattered bones, drove his knee into the older man's solar plexus, folding him in half, followed with an elbow to the back of the head. Donovan dropped. El Cuervo was 30 feet away, his rifle coming up. Colton grabbed Donovan and used him as a shield. Shoot me, and you shoot your partner. El Cuervo hesitated. A second Barrett shot thundered across the water. One of the portable lights exploded, then another. Wyatt was taking out the illumination, plunging the pier into darkness. Colton threw Donovan aside and ran. Bullets chased him, splintering wood, ricocheting off metal. He zigzagged, making himself as hard a target as possible. Ahead he could see Marlowe reaching the shore, Ivy safe in her arms, Ranger limping beside them. Almost there, something punched into Colton's right shoulder. Not a direct hit, a graze, but it spun him around and he stumbled. El Cuervo was there, rifle aimed at Colton's chest. This is where you die, SEAL! The rifle fired, but Ranger was faster. The dog launched himself between Colton and the muzzle. The bullet meant for Colton's heart hit Ranger's chest instead. The German shepherd collapsed. No! Colton's roar was primal. He closed the distance to El Cuervo, and a heartbeat drove his fist into the man's throat, crushed his larynx. El Cuervo dropped, choking, dying. Colton scooped up Ranger and ran. Behind him, Donovan was shouting orders, but his voice was weak, pained. The cartel soldiers were scattering, confused, without leadership, terrified of the invisible sniper. Colton made it to shore. Marlowe was there with Wyatt's van, the side door open. He laid Ranger gently in the back seat. The dog's breathing was shallow. Blood spread across his fur, dark and terrible. "No, no, no. Ranger, stay with me. Stay with me, boy." Wyatt was behind the wheel. "We need to go, now. Drive." The van lurched forward. Behind them, gunfire continued, but it was random, desperate. They were away. Colton pressed his hands against Ranger's chest, trying to stop the bleeding. The dog's eyes found his golden pools of pain and loyalty. "You're going to be okay. You hear me? You don't get to die. Not for me. Not again." Ranger's tail moved, just once, just barely. Then his eyes closed. "Drive faster!" Colton was crying now, tears he couldn't stop, couldn't control. "Find a vet. Find the nearest emergency vet hospital. Commander, find one." Marlowe reached back from the passenger seat, her hand finding Colton's shoulder. "Turn left up ahead. There's an emergency clinic. It's 15 minutes. Ivy was in her mother's lap, the tape removed from her mouth, her small hands clutching Marlowe's shirt. "Is the dog going to be okay?" Colton looked at this 5-year-old girl, this child he'd risked everything to save, and he couldn't lie to her. "I don't know, sweetheart. He saved you. I saw him. He jumped in front of the gun." "Yeah, he did. That means he's a hero." Colton stroked Ranger's head, felt the shallow breathing, the too fast heartbeat. "Yeah, baby, he's a hero." The 15-minute drive took 11. Wyatt drove like a man possessed, ignoring traffic lights, taking corners at speeds that made the van's tires scream. They screeched to a stop in front of Crescent Bay Emergency Veterinary Clinic. Colton carried Ranger through the doors, this dog who'd saved his life in Kandahar. And again tonight, this brother in fur who'd never asked for anything except the chance to serve. A woman in scrubs rushed toward them. Dr. Vernon Huxley, her name tag read. "Gunshot wound," Colton said. "Chest, he's lost a lot of blood." She didn't waste time with questions. "Get him on the table. Now." They worked through the night. Dr. Huxley and 2 technicians fighting to save a retired military working dog who'd already given more than anyone had a right to ask. Colton sat in the waiting room, Marlowe beside him, Ivy asleep in her mother's arms. Wyatt paced, his phone pressed to his ear, talking to someone. FBI probably, setting up the endgame. At 11:34 p.m. Dr. Huxley emerged. Her scrubs were covered in blood. Her face was exhausted. Colton stood. "How is he?" "He's alive." She managed a small smile. "Barely. The bullet missed his heart by centimeters. We removed it, repaired the damage. He's lost a lot of blood and the trauma aggravated his old hip injury. He'll never walk the same way again. But he'll live. Yes, Commander, he'll live." Colton sat down hard, relief washing over him like a wave. Marlowe's hand found his squeezed tight. "Can I see him?" "He's sedated, but yes, follow me." Ranger lay on a padded table, tubes and wires connecting him to machines that beeped with reassuring regularity. His breathing was steady now, his heartbeat strong. Colton rested his hand on the dog's head, felt the familiar fur under his fingers. "You stubborn, loyal, beautiful idiot," he whispered. "You're not allowed to scare me like that again, you hear me?" Ranger's tail moved, just slightly, but unmistakably. Dr. Huxley smiled. "He can hear you. Even sedated, he knows you're here." Colton leaned down and pressed his forehead against Ranger's. "Thank you, brother. Thank you for everything." July 13th, 2024, 2:47 a.m., FBI operation. The FBI hit the Blackwell estate with overwhelming force. 38 agents, SWAT support, federal warrants that covered everything from murder to drug trafficking. They found Donovan Blackwell in his study trying to burn documents. His shoulder was bandaged from Colton's knife wound. He was arrested without incident. They found shipping manifests, ledgers, bank records. Everything Marlowe had photographed and more. 15 years of criminal activity laid bare. They found Garrett Blackwell at a private hospital, sedated, his right hand amputated at the wrist. The Barrett's .50 caliber round had done damage no surgeon could repair. He was arrested anyway, handcuffed to his hospital bed. The cartel's soldiers had scattered. El Cuervo's body was found on the pier, throat crushed. The others had fled into the night. At 6:15 a.m., Agent Callahan Frost called Colton. "It's done," she said. "We have them, all of them. Donovan Garrett plus 12 corporate officers who were part of the conspiracy." "What about evidence? Between what you gathered and what we seized, we have enough to put them away for life. Multiple life sentences." Colton looked out the window of the veterinary clinic. The sun was rising over Crescent Bay, painting the ocean in shades of gold and pink. "What about the town? The Blackwell assets are being seized, almost $700 million. After legal fees and restitution to victims, a significant portion will be returned to Crescent Bay for community development." "And Marlo? Her daughter's surgery? The Crime Victims Fund has approved $210,000. More than enough for the surgery and post-operative care." Colton felt something in his chest loosen. Hope, real hope. "Thank you, Agent Frost. Thank you, Commander. You did what we couldn't. You made them accountable." He hung up and went back to the recovery room where Ranger was sleeping. Marlo was there, sitting in a chair beside the examination table, Ivy curled in her lap. Both of them were asleep. Colton stood there watching them. This woman who'd been beaten down but never broken. This child who'd been dying but would now live. This dog who'd sacrificed everything. His family. Somewhere along the way, without him realizing it, they'd become his family. Dr. Huxley appeared in the doorway. "You should go home. Get some sleep. Ranger will be fine. We'll call if anything changes." "I'm not leaving him. Commander, I'm not leaving." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. "I'll bring you a blanket." Colton settled into the other chair, his hand resting on Ranger's side, feeling the steady rise and fall of the dog's breathing. Marlo stirred, opened her eyes. "Colton, I'm here. The FBI. What did they say? It's over. The Blackwells are going to prison, all of them. And Ivy's surgery paid for, all of it." She started crying, quiet tears that she tried to wipe away but couldn't stop. "I don't know how to thank you." "You already did. You fought. You didn't give up. That's all the thanks I need." Ivy woke up, looked around sleepily. "Is Ranger still okay?" "He's going to be fine, sweetheart." "Good." She yawned. "Can we keep him when he gets better? Can he live with us?" Colton looked at Marlo. Their eyes met. "Yeah," he said softly. "Yeah, I think he'd like that." September 16th, 2024, 4:35 p.m., Multnomah County Courthouse. The jury foreman stood. The courtroom fell silent. "On the charge of first-degree murder, how do you find the defendant?" "Guilty." "On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder?" "Guilty." They went through all 37 charges. Every single one came back the same. Guilty. Garrett Blackwell sat at the defense table, his face blank, his left hand cuffed to his chair. Where his right hand used to be, there was now a prosthetic. He'd refused to look at it during the entire trial. Donovan Blackwell at a separate table showed no emotion. He'd barely reacted to any of the testimony, the evidence, the parade of witnesses who detailed 15 years of corruption and violence. Judge Eleanor Hartwick looked at them both with unconcealed disgust. "Garrett Blackwell, you have been found guilty of 37 counts, including murder, kidnapping, assault, and drug trafficking. I hereby sentence you to life imprisonment without possibility of parole, plus 450 years. She turned to Donovan. "Donovan Blackwell, you have orchestrated a criminal enterprise that destroyed lives, corrupted institutions, and poisoned this community. I sentence you to life imprisonment without possibility of parole." The gavel came down. It was over. Outside the courthouse, Colton stood with Marlo and Ivy. The girl had grown in the 2 months since her surgery. Color in her cheeks, energy in her movements. She was chasing pigeons on the courthouse lawn, laughing as they scattered. "She's beautiful," Colton said. "She's alive." Marlo leaned against him. Because of you. Because of all of us. Ivy ran back to them out of breath but smiling. Did the bad men go to jail? Yes, baby. They're going to be in jail for a very long time. Good. Can we go home now? I want to see Ranger. Colton smiled. Ranger was waiting at the house, probably lying in his favorite spot by the window, watching for them to return. The dog had recovered, but the limp was permanent. Dr. Huxley had been right. He'd never walk the same way again. But he was alive, and he was loved, and that was enough. Yeah, Colton said. Let's go home. They drove back to Crescent Bay together, the three of them plus Wyatt, who'd stayed for the trial. The town had changed in 2 months. New businesses opening, streets being repaired. The pall of fear that had hung over everything was finally lifting. The Lighthouse Diner had been renamed Thaddeus Bennett Memorial Diner. Opal had insisted. A photograph of Thaddeus hung behind the counter, smiling, forever young. When they pulled up to the house on Pinecrest Avenue, Eudora was on the porch waiting. Ranger sat beside her, his tail wagging when he saw the truck. Ivy jumped out and ran to the dog, throwing her arms around his neck. Ranger licked her face, patient and gentle with this small human who loved him. Colton stood there watching and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. So what now? Marlowe asked. What does Colton Reeves do when he's not fighting monsters? I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. You could stay, if you wanted. He looked at her. Really looked. This woman who'd survived so much, who'd fought beside him, who'd become more than a mission, more than someone to protect. Is that what you want? Yes, she said simply. Ivy needs you. The town needs you. I need you. I'm broken, Marlowe. I have nightmares. I wake up screaming sometimes. There are days when I can barely function. Then we'll be broken together, and slowly maybe we can help each other heal. Colton pulled her close, kissed her forehead. Okay, I'll stay. Ivy cheered. Ranger barked. Eudora smiled from the porch, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, Colton Reeves felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. February 14th, 2025, 6:47 p.m., Crescent Bay Beach. The sunset painted the Pacific in shades of fire. Colton and Marlowe walked along the beach, Ranger limping beside them, leaving 3 sets of tracks in the wet sand. I have something for you, Colton said. On Valentine's Day. How romantic. Don't get too excited, it's not fancy. He knelt down in the sand. Ranger sat beside him, holding a small box in his mouth. Colton took the box and opened it. Inside was a ring. Sapphire antique, simple and beautiful. His mother's ring, the only heirloom he had left. Marlowe Bennett, I came to this town ready to die. You taught me how to live. You and Ivy are my purpose. Will you marry me? Marlowe's hands flew to her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. Yes, God, yes. 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. From behind a driftwood log, Ivy jumped out. She said yes. She'd been hiding there with Eudora, both of them in on the plan. They ran over and suddenly Colton was surrounded by his family. Marlowe kissing him, Ivy hugging his legs, Eudora crying happy tears, Ranger's tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. When? Marlowe asked. When should we get married? Whenever you want. June, summer solstice, on the beach. Perfect. They walked back to the house together, the 5 of them, as the sun sank below the horizon and the stars came out one by one. June 21st, 2025, 4:00 p.m., Crescent Bay Beach. The ceremony was simple. 200 guests, most of them townspeople who'd come to witness the wedding of the woman who'd survived and the soldier who'd stayed. Ivy was the flower girl, wearing a white dress and carrying a basket of roses. Ranger was the ring bearer, the rings attached to his collar, walking slowly but proudly down the aisle. Eudora officiated, her voice strong despite her age. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. Colton stood at the altar in his dress blues, medals gleaming. Wyatt was his best man. Behind them, in a place of honor, were photographs of Sergeant Brooks, Corporal Hendricks, Lieutenant Dawson, and Private Sullivan, brothers who couldn't be here but whose memory lived on. The music started. Everyone turned. Marlo appeared at the end of the aisle. She wore a simple white dress, nothing like the expensive gowns in magazines, but perfect for who she was. Her hair was down loose around her shoulders. She carried a bouquet of wildflowers. She was the most beautiful thing Colton had ever seen. Jeremiah Walsh, the old fisherman, walked her down the aisle. Her father was gone, but the town had stepped in to fill that role. When she reached the altar, Colton took her hands. Eudora smiled. "Who gives this woman to be married?" "We do," said Jeremiah. "All of us. This town gives her." The vows were heartfelt. Marlo went first. "Colton, you saw me when I was invisible. You fought when I couldn't. You stayed when everyone else left. You gave me hope when I had none. I promise to love you, to stand beside you, to be your strength when you're weak and your peace when the nightmares come." Colton's voice was rough with emotion. "Marlo, you gave me a reason to live. You and Ivy are my second chance. You're my purpose, my home, my family. I promise to protect you, to cherish you, to be the man you deserve until my last breath. I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Colton kissed Marlo and the beach erupted in cheers. Ivy jumped up and down. Ranger howled. Eudora wiped tears from her eyes. The reception lasted until midnight. There was food and music and dancing. Colton danced with Marlo, with Ivy, even with Eudora. When it was over, when the guests had gone home and the beach was quiet again, Colton and Marlo sat on the sand watching the waves. "Happy?" she asked. "More than I ever thought possible." "Me too." Ivy was asleep on a blanket nearby. Ranger curled protectively around her. "This is real, isn't it?" Colton said. "This isn't going to disappear." "It's real. I promise." He pulled her close. "I love you, Mrs. Reeves." "I love you too." They sat there until dawn, holding each other, listening to the ocean at peace. June 15th, 2030, 10 a.m., Crescent Bay Elementary School. Ivy Bennett Reeves stood at the podium looking out at 200 faces. She was 11 years old now, tall for her age, with her mother's dark hair and her father's steady eyes. The scar from her heart surgery had faded to a thin white line barely visible. She was the valedictorian of her 5th grade class. "My dad taught me that heroes don't wear capes," she began. Her voice was clear, confident. "They wear uniforms, they work at diners, they sit in wheelchairs and tell stories about fighting for justice. They have 4 legs and gray muzzles and still try to catch balls even when their hips hurt." The audience laughed through their tears. Ranger sat in the front row between Colton and Marlo. He was 10 years old now, ancient for a German shepherd. His muzzle was completely gray, his limp was worse, but his eyes were still bright, still alert. "5 years ago," Ivy continued, "a stranger walked into a diner and saw someone in trouble. He could have looked away. Most people did, but he didn't. He stopped. He helped. He stayed." She looked at Colton. "That stranger became my dad. He taught me that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being scared and doing the right thing anyway. It's about standing up for people who can't stand up for themselves." Her voice grew stronger. "So my challenge to all of you is this: be a hero. Find someone who needs you. Don't walk away. Stop, help, stay, because that's how we change the world, one act of courage at a time." The applause was thunderous. Afterward, they gathered for photos. Ivy with her diploma, flanked by Colton and Marlo. Eudora in her wheelchair, smiling proudly. Ranger sitting at attention, patient despite the chaos. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart," Marlo said, hugging her daughter. "Thanks, Mom. But I meant every word. Dad's a hero." Colton knelt down to her level. "You're the hero, Ivy. You survived when everyone said you wouldn't. You're going to do amazing things. I want to be like you when I grow up. Help people. Make a difference. Then you will." They went to Mitchell's diner for lunch. The whole town seemed to be there, celebrating Ivy's achievement. Opal brought out a cake shaped like a diploma. "For our valedictorian." Ivy beamed. That night, after everyone had gone home, Colton sat on the porch with Ranger. The dog lay beside his chair, breathing slowly. "We did good, didn't we, boy?" Colton stroked the dog's head. "We saved them. Marlo and Ivy. They're happy." Ranger's tail thumped once against the wood. "I know you're tired. I can see it. Your body's giving out." Colton's voice cracked. "But I'm not ready to say goodbye." The dog lifted his head and rested it on Colton's knee. Okay. I'll let you rest soon. I promise." August 12, 2030, 3:47 a.m. Colton woke to Marlo shaking his shoulder. "He's not moving," she whispered. They went to the bedroom where Ranger slept. The dog was lying on his side on the cushion they'd bought him, the expensive orthopedic one that was supposed to help his hips. He wasn't breathing. Colton dropped to his knees, put his hand on Ranger's side. The fur was still warm, but there was no heartbeat. No, please." But Ranger was gone. Sometime in the night, peacefully in his sleep, the old warrior had finally laid down his burden. Colton gathered the dog into his arms and wept. 15 years together. Afghanistan, Colombia, Crescent Bay. Every hell they'd survived together. And now Ranger was gone. Marlo sat beside him, her arms around both of them, crying too. Ivy appeared in the doorway in her pajamas. She didn't say anything, just crawled into Colton's lap and hugged him while he held his dog for the last time. They buried Ranger on the hill behind the house in a spot where the sun always shone and the view stretched all the way to the ocean. The whole town came to pay their respects. Fishermen and shopkeepers, teachers and children. Everyone who'd been touched by the dog who'd helped save their community. Colton stood at the grave, unable to speak. Wyatt stepped forward. He raised a trumpet to his lips and played taps. The mournful notes drifted across the hillside. When it was over, when everyone else had gone, Colton knelt by the grave. Ivy placed Ranger's favorite Kong toy on the freshly turned earth. "Thank you, Ranger," she said, "for protecting us, for loving us, for being the best dog in the whole world." Colton found his voice. "You saved my life 47 times, brother. Once in Kandahar, 46 times after by giving me purpose. You taught me what loyalty means, what sacrifice means, what love means." He pressed his hand to the earth. "Rest now. Your watch is over. You've earned your peace." That night, Colton sat on the porch alone. The space beside his chair where Ranger always lay felt impossibly empty. Marlo brought him coffee, sat beside him. "He had a good life," she said, "because of you. I had a good life because of him. He knew you loved him. That's what mattered." Colton nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. They sat there in silence, watching the stars, mourning a brother, a friend, a hero. June 10th, 2032, 7:15 p.m. Bennett Reeves' home. Ivy burst through the front door, waving an envelope. It came! Colton looked up from the book he was reading. What came? My acceptance letter to the West Point preparatory program. She was 13 now, taller, stronger, with the confidence of a girl who knew exactly who she was and what she wanted. Marlo emerged from the kitchen. You got in. I got in. Ivy jumped up and down. They want me to start next summer. Colton took the letter, read it, his daughter following in his footsteps. Part of him had hoped she'd choose a different path, something safer. But he'd known since her 5th grade speech that this was coming. I'm so proud of you, he said. Are you mad? Mad? Why would I be mad? Because it means leaving home, going away. Colton pulled her into a hug. Sweetheart, I'm not mad, I'm terrified, but I'm also proud. You're choosing to serve, to be part of something bigger than yourself. That takes courage. You'll train me right, teach me what I need to know, every day until you leave. And he did. Every morning for the next year they ran together. Colton taught her self-defense, discipline, endurance. He taught her how to navigate with a compass, how to field strip a rifle, how to push through pain. But more importantly, he taught her why. Being strong isn't about hurting people. he said one day after a particularly brutal training session. It's about protecting people. Never forget that. I won't, Dad. Eudora watched from the porch now, 88 years old, her body frail but her spirit unbreakable. She's going to do great things, the old woman said to Marlowe. I know, I just wish she didn't have to go so far away. She's your daughter. She'll carry you with her wherever she goes. August 15th, 2032, 7:23 p.m. Bennett Reeves' home. Colton and Marlowe sat on the porch watching Ivy practice martial arts in the yard with Wyatt, who'd become a permanent fixture in their lives. Uncle Wyatt, Ivy called him. Eudora was beside them, knitting, humming an old hymn. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. Do you ever regret it? Marlowe asked. Stopping that day. Colton thought about it. About the diner, the blood, the fear. About Garrett and Donovan. About the pier. About Ranger taking that bullet. Not for 1 second, he said. Best decision I ever made. Even with everything that happened, the violence, the danger, especially because of it. We went through fire and came out steel. He took her hand. I came to this town ready to die. You taught me how to live. We taught each other. They kissed soft and sweet, the kind of kiss that came from years of partnership, of surviving together, of choosing each other every day. Ivy finished her forms and ran over breathless. How was that? Perfect, Colton said. You're ready for West Point, for anything. She sat on the porch steps, leaning back against Colton's legs. Tell me about Ranger again. Again, I've told you 100 times. I know, but I like hearing it. So Colton told her about a dog who'd saved his life in Afghanistan, who'd limped into a diner and changed everything, who'd taken a bullet and lived to tell about it, who'd been part of their family for 5 beautiful years. I wish I could have known him longer, Ivy said. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. As night fell over Crescent Bay, Colton looked at his family. His wife, who'd survived everything the world threw at her. His daughter, who was about to embark on her own journey. His best friend, Wyatt, who'd stayed when he could have left. Eudora, who'd held them all together. And somewhere he knew Ranger was watching over them, still on guard, still protecting his pack. The war was over. The monsters were defeated. The family was safe. Colton Reeves had found his peace, and it was enough.